Everybody, it is your good friend. Oh my goodness, I heard an echo. There's more of me in here. Um, I am Dr. David Proden, and you are watching the Safety Doc podcast. I am live down here in the North Star recording studio, where it is a brisk 55 degrees right now. Hasn't warmed up yet here in Wisconsin. So we're going to allow a minute to have people get into the show. I'll go over the format and I'll cover what we're going to address today, which is huge. It's school funding that has a significant change to it, how it impacts school safety. We're going to see some tremendous, almost draconian cuts to school funding for this upcoming year. I want to bring you up to speed on those. I'm a retired school administrator, so I'm going to give you the inside perspective. So let us get started. What I have in front of me, just so you understand the operation that I'm working with down here in the studio. To my left, I have a screen with my notes for this show. In front of me is just me. And over to the right is open web page. So if you see me kind of looking in different directions, that's what's going on. Please share this with your friends. If you feel compelled, give a thumbs up to the doc, give a thumbs up to the show. We've gained a lot of followers here just in the last few weeks. So if you can go up and hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it. Also, a thumbs up. Hey, someone's already done that. I appreciate that. And Cameron, welcome, my good friend. Thanks for coming back. How am I doing? I am doing well. So, few things. We are well as a family. We are doing well. People are healthy. We're staying connected, which is important. I just got off a Zoom meeting tonight with one of my friends in Santa Barbara for face validity, right? Do your face validity check. What is happening around you? What is happening with your friends and family? They get out in the community. They'll observe what's happening and authentically tell you, this is what I'm seeing at parks, hospital, grocery store, armory, whatever. So that's so important. I've continued to build out that network. Many of you are part of that. And I thank you very much for helping me to be very informed for school and community safety. So yeah, I'm doing well. Families doing well. A few things I've noticed, face validity check in here, more thinning of the shelves, which means products are getting faced or moved to the front. So again, if you're looking in back of that can of soup or rice-a-roni or whatever it is, there might not be anything in back. When otherwise there were like 4 in back and like a whole box on the top and stuff like that. So, there's no plexiglass barriers yet at our Walmart. Haven't seen those, but they are marking off spots on the floor. Stand here, and the next person stand 6 feet away and 6 feet away. So that's happening. I haven't heard of anybody that I personally know who has tested positive for the coronavirus. So I haven't heard of that. Again, for anybody that I know. Some schools have adapted to virtual education. I'm very connected with school administrators across the country, and some have jumped into it. They've got it up and running. They've given permission to their teachers to experiment, try new things. And others are really spinning their wheels, just hoping we'll come back to this self-similarity of what we knew, what was life like a month ago before all of this happened. And for those folks, it's going to be really hard because I don't see any of this changing in the near term. I don't think where schools have been closed, I don't think those will reopen again until at least the fall. A couple other things, PBS Wisconsin, the public television channel here in Wisconsin, they changed their afternoon programming. So now on PBS, which is really pretty cool, they do lessons. So it might be a 4th grade through 6th grade science lesson at 2:00, and then there's some literature thing and whatever. But they really got on this fast. And years ago, I remember my grandparents talking about how they lived up in rural Wisconsin and they would receive instruction over the radio. So you tune in at a certain time and someone would give like a math lesson or art or whatever it would be, like over the radio, right? So that's the way that it used to be. And also I've noticed, I posted this today on Twitter, Bellevue, Washington has a web page up on their government site And you can go to that page and report social distance violations. And you actually can take a Google map, drag from the Google map into address, and it'll automatically put the address of the location in there. And then you write down a description of what happened, and you can attach photos. So that is something I'd seen a couple days ago in a few counties, but it's new. It's getting to be more popular. Um, I'm I have questions about that, right? If you have a website where you can report large gatherings, first of all, I think a few things. One is we don't have large gatherings outside of like beaches and things like that. People have pretty much got the message. They're following the directives. We're not having these large gatherings. The other part is you can submit a photo or photos to prove that there was this large gathering. To me, does that then become a public record because it's submitted to a public website? How exactly would that work? So I don't know. And does this encourage people to go out in their car and drive around and look for groups of people that then they can report? If the police get the call, are they going to dispatch a squad car to go and check this out when we know that the police force is already depleted because some are in self quarantine and we just have other more pressing issues? So I don't like the feel of that. It's something though that I've observed, in the county adjacent to where I'm at, and I saw this again. I posted it on Twitter today. So Tyler, hello and welcome to this live stream tonight. So let's go over what we're going to talk about tonight. Well, first of all, schools, okay, K-12 schools, also university, but we're going to focus on K-12. K-12 schools are bracing for a 20% funding slash. That is huge. Funding slash of 20%, if not more in some places. And this could be perpetual, right? This might not rebound. So we're going to talk about what it looks like, first of all, to fund a school, how that happens. I've actually put together a whiteboard drawing of that, and we're going to do some live stuff to go over, just so you understand basically how schools are funded. And it's not going to be real intense academic, but just, we know the main funding streams and how this is going to get affected when we have fewer taxes and businesses shutting down. And then what is likely to be funded in a school, what's going to remain, what actually might grow in funding, what might get more funding, and then also what will be cut, what's going to be gone. And of course, we have to address this from a school safety perspective. School safety, a $3 billion industry, which will be dramatically altered by this. And the definition of school safety will change. It has already changed. It's no longer our bollards and barricades and window films and stuff like that. It's going to be much different. So we're going to get into all of that. So let's go down. Just a few housekeeping things again. If you can subscribe to the channel, if you're already not doing so, I would appreciate that. Also, a thumbs up for the show. I would appreciate. On Twitter, I'm at safetyphd, and my website is safetyphd.com. I'm not going to try to sell you anything, but I have 125 episodes that can be linked out from there, including blog posts and my book, School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America. It's much more than school safety. The first chapter is how thinking about a bagel can get you through the worst day of your life. A chapter on transitioning into chaos, looking at a lot of different disasters from tornadoes, Joplin, Missouri, tornado 2011 to 9/11 and things like that. Really practical right now as we've kind of gone from our bagel, our self-similarity out here into a crazy state of chaos. So I'm going to back up a little bit and let's do analysis of how schools are funded. I'm going to keep this very basic, as you can tell by my drawing. All right, let's take a lookie here. Basically, this is how schools get funded. Okay, the feds kick in about 10%. The state kicks in about 50%. 40% comes local. That's your taxes and businesses. Medicaid, gifts to the school, things like that. That's a small amount that goes in there. Now, another number we have to kind of keep in mind as we go through this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but okay. So $12,000. So just think that on average, every student generates in revenue for the school $12,000. So 10 students, that'd be $120,000 and so forth. But this is basically how this formula kind of works. So we can just look at this right away, and we know that we've been hit from a Fed standpoint, from a state, and especially local. I'm going to walk you through all these processes. Look, this was the headline today. Okay. My paper, UW-Madison braces for $100 million hit. $100 million hit. All right. And then there's an article over here, state eases licenses rules for nurses. It's kind of interesting that those two are on the same page. Here, you're getting rid of all this progressive licensing and making it easier. And on the other side, our university systems, which have grown huge in all of these different positions, are saying we're taking a $1 million hit at least. And also underneath here, a university will not reimburse students for tuitions and fees. Wow. I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems like there should be some prorating on that. But anyway, like these are the things that are starting to come out now. And if you do the math, which I've done, talk to the people into this, it's like that's at least a 20% cut in funding that's coming out of the university. I'm hearing the same thing with school districts, 20% cut in funding. And this is just crazy, right? These are big numbers. So anyway, we talked about how schools are funded. Federal funds, that comes right from the feds. It goes to the states. The states give it out to the districts. Things such as Title I reading grants, special education, that's where that comes out of. The state funds, that's about half. So when the states fund education, it's per pupil. So the more students you have, the more money you get. That's exactly how that formula goes. Okay. And we said it's about $12,000 on average. And, it's higher and lower in some places, but about $12,000. So additional reimbursement to districts that have special education staffs. There's a little more that comes from the state into those districts. It's not a lot of money, though. Medicaid reimbursement. We hear about schools. They bill if they have students with disabilities receiving services in the school, speech language, occupational physical therapy, nursing. They get a payment, which comes from either the state or the Fed in that, but it's not a whole lot of money. So really, it's the state is the big one. The second big pot of money is local, your community, and then you get some money from the Fed. The feds are going to cut these entitlements without a doubt. Like those will be slashed significantly. The state gets their revenue from taxes, right? Then property taxes through sales tax and different things like this. And of course, all of businesses are closed right now everywhere. It's just so the tax is just eviscerated. That's gone. So there are going to be massive cuts from the state. Now let's talk about local funding, because this gets really murky. And this is where school board meetings are going to become very, very intense over the next month or two. So you want to be aware of this. A school board sets what is called a mill rate, M-I-L, mill rate. Okay, a mill rate basically means for every $1,000 of property, you pay $1 in taxes. So let's think about this. So if I have $100,000 house, okay, and the mill rate is set at $1 per $1,000, I would pay $1,000 in taxes. So usually people are paying in mill rate. So it's a big chunk of their tax bill, what they pay in property taxes, especially in Wisconsin. It's about half of their entire tax bill goes toward school funding, something called a mill rate. Schools can set that. They set it at an annual meeting, deciding what our mill rate is going to be. So that is something there's going to be much pressure from community members coming out and saying, listen, I've lost my job, my business is closed, all of this stuff. You've got to lower your mill rate. You've got to lower our taxes. Well, if they lower taxes, that means the district has less money to pay for staff and everything else. So be familiar with that term, MIL, mill rate. It's the rate of taxation that the school board sets of how it's going to tax its community. So mill rate also has something which is, let's talk about referendums. School districts kind of went bananas in the last, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years with referendums for school safety and building and everything, because one, the economy was really good, right? It was easy to get money. You could finance things really cheap. If you had a referendum and you said, we're doing this because we want to increase safety of the buildings or putting in new windows, entrances, stuff, people typically voted for that. There's super high rate, like above 80% of referendums are passing. Now people have these debts as communities, right? And they go up for, 20, 30 years. and they have to pay those. So when they get their property taxes right now, they're going to have to pay these. Most taxes arrive in December, but boards have to think ahead. They have their annual meetings, they set their mill rates. This stuff is on the horizon. Now, in addition to that, and I think where we've talked about it in previous live streams, there's been a lot of school expenditures which were really extravagant, artificial turf playing fields and all of these types of things, jumbotrons and whatever, those things getting passed. There's also something called a recurring referendum. So think of it this way with your house, okay? If you had a referendum to build your house, you say, okay, I'm going to have a referendum for $200,000 that passes, I build my house. That's one thing, like that happens and it's done. But there's something called a recurring referendum, and a lot of schools used it. And what they would say is, okay, we're going to have that $200,000 referendum for your house, and we're also going to pay $10,000 a year forever for like lawn care and stuff like that. So it's a recurring debt. And you can't get rid of that, right? That's part of a referendum. So you have a lot of school districts that have done these recurring expenses. And these are very hard then you'd have to have a referendum to work those back out of the system. So recurring expenses, schools will say, we're going to spend an additional $300,000 every year. The taxpayers will give us, because they, pass this referendum, they'll give us an extra $300,000 a year for technology. And then that just goes on and on and on. It doesn't sunset. There's another thing called a fund balance, okay? Not a fund balance, not an FUN balance. It's not fun, but it's a fund balance. And basically, it's money the district has saved over the years. Those can range from anywhere, of $1 million to a few million dollars, but they're not meant to perpetually pay for things. So let's talk about, so that's kind of our school funding model. Let's talk right now about austerity measures that are going to take effect in schools, or like budget cuts, right? Let's talk about budget cuts. School contracts, staff contracts, those come due June 30th. In most places, June 30th. So everybody's under contract right now. Everybody's getting paid through June 30th. But right now, schools have to figure out, who are we going to offer a contract to for the upcoming year, right? Who are we going to extend this contract to? Teachers, staff, and so forth. So June 30th, there are going to be a number of people not getting contracts for the upcoming year. So this happens right now. Schools are figuring out who we're going to offer our contracts to. School administrators usually get a 2-year contract, but you're probably going to see schools approaching administrators and school boards and saying, you've got to feel the pain just like everybody else. So now, in addition to being a principal or whatever, you're going to teach 2 classes, or you're going to have multiple buildings or whatever. Like these positions will be redefined. And again, I'm saying, and what I've heard, all the information funneled in, schools should prepare for a 20% budget reduction, less money coming in out of the state, fed, local. That could be conservative in some places. Again, if you have a very vocal community that says, listen, our main employers have shut down. We haven't worked in 5 months. You're expecting us to pay this in taxes? This is crazy. We'll lose everything that we have. School boards are going to be responsive to that, and they're going to lower their mill rate. So instead of a 20% reduction, maybe it's like a 30% reduction. So this is unprecedented. I mean, districts that have declining enrollment and things like that, they might experience, reductions from one year to another of maybe something of 3-4%. That would be considered pretty substantial. Nothing like a 20% or more reduction. So if parents choose to homeschool their kids, that means the district wouldn't receive that $12,000 we were talking about that they typically get. Now, if the district has a virtual school and they're providing education through the virtual, they would continue to receive that $12,000. But if parents start to say, we've had this experience now of doing virtual school, maybe we just want to go with homeschooling. I think that's going to happen in a number of cases. 55 million kids, K-12, all across the U.S. If we had, 5 million of those kids, 3 million of those kids become homeschool, this would have a big change in our system. So let's look at something else here. There's something called tax districts, right? Schools, this is something schools just have to deal with, because the communities will say, we want to grow. we want to grow our community. And what we're going to do is this new building comes in, this new industrial, this new industry, whatever. We're going to give them a break. We're going to put in roads. We're going to give them sewer and water and stuff like that. We'll pick that up as a city. And we're also going to allow them to not pay city taxes for like 10 or 15 years. Okay. So it's basically a special protected tax district. It's an incentive to get businesses to come into your community. That works under the model that your community continues to grow and that the economy continues to do well. But now if you've just put together these agreements, which a lot of districts and communities, they have these agreements to bring in businesses, suddenly things are tanking, things are going bad, and you have no money that you're going to get from this business, which is taking up space, and they might be, otherwise you'd be taxing this. If it was 15 years from now, they'd be on your tax roll, you'd be getting some tax from them. You're not getting any of that. So if you drive around your community and you're looking at this place and this place, which has been put up in the last 2-3 years, there's a strong likelihood that they aren't paying taxes. They've probably been put in through this special tax protected district, which is what places do because everybody's competing for jobs. So let's talk about what will get cut. Okay. And before that, I'm going to pause right here. Anybody have any questions in the chat room? Everything coming through okay? Just going to move over here. And dun, 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 dun. All right, good. So if everything's good, any questions? I can take those. All right. Hopefully I'm not freezing up at all. I know things have been thinned out quite a bit with the internet. So yeah, what will get cut? So let's walk through what's going to get cut. Again, we're talking at least 20% reduction. And again, the thing is, most people, they're not aware of this. Educators, administrators kind of have a sense because their boards are saying, we're going to have emergency meetings in the next few weeks. We got to prepare teacher contracts. Teachers really aren't aware of this. I talked to a number and they're saying, well, in fall, when this kind of returns to some self-similarity, we're going to need more counselors. We're going to need more social workers. And I'm thinking, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you have no idea that the funding source, what you're getting, is going to be so substantially altered and diminished. You're not going to be getting nothing new, right? You're going to be contracting quite significantly every single district in the country. So the biggest expense in the district is staff, right? Paying your staff salary, paying your staff benefits. That's your biggest expense. So you're going to have to make some reduction in staff to get underneath this 20% threshold, so you can just function. So that's right off the top. Maintenance, anything that's in a maintenance budget, in a maintenance fund, maintenance is just going to be stalled. If we were going to replace the windows, if we were going to patch this area on the sidewalk, if whatever we were going to do, we were going to upgrade something in our HVAC system, not happening, right? Nothing will happen. All of those accounts will be shut down. Unencumbered building projects. If you've passed something and the building isn't up yet, you haven't bid it out on contract, that'll be shut down. Everything will come to a standstill. I think it was the city of Boston I was reading. City of Boston has closed all of their construction projects, except some stuff that's in progress right now. They just shut it down. We're not going to do it. We have no idea how much money we'll have. Cuomo said the same thing in New York. Just expect. I mean, we might have a year or two where the only thing we're doing is just filling some potholes. I mean, that might be it. So maintenance, support staff. If you're a support staff in a district, you really need the students to be there. Support staff are assigned to students. If it's unlikely students are going to be coming back into the district, your position will be gone, right? That position isn't going to be there. And there's a lot of iffy stuff for fall. Are we going to have a second wave of this? Do we want to have schools, start a little bit later? What is this? But support staff, we're going to have big cuts. Bus drivers, big cuts. Kitchen staff, gone. Office staff, gone. These are folks right now who aren't under contract. Bus drivers, kitchen staff, office staff, they can be terminated at any time. If it was a teacher right now, you couldn't do that. You'd have to pay out the contract, which is through June. Athletic directors, coaches, gone. None of that. Public relations and community relations positions, those should have been gone in the first place. This will take care of them. They'll be gone. Here's another thing that changes, right? In Most states, you have 180 days of student contact time in the contract. So if I'm a teacher, my contract might be for 190 days a year, 10 days for professional development, and then 180 days teaching face to face with the students or virtual or whatever it is, but I'm working with the students. Now, states are saying, listen, we're not going to do the 180 days requirement anymore. We're going to reduce it. It might be 140 days. Well, if you take 140 days versus 180, that's a 22% reduction, which means if teachers, are hired on for the next year, this upcoming year, if 2020-21 is only 140 days long, they're going to get a 22% cut in their pay. So in their salary and in their benefits, if not more. So again, this is what we're looking at. This is very widespread of saying, hey, we're going to make the school year shorter. Professional development. Oh my goodness, I talked about this. People going to conferences. I'm going to a conference and I'm gone for 2-3 days, and then you have to get a sub for that person. And then you're paying expenses, for mileage and all of that stuff. All of these big conferences, which were sponsored by vendors anyway, and as big a social event, those will be gone. We know that we can do these virtually. We know that we don't have to get people out of buildings. There's not going to be the money for it, right? There's not the money for it. And your social distancing, no one is going to take this on in the next year and put together a 300-person conference, which they shove into these, small rooms and small areas to make it economical and make the most money they can. That stuff's done. Here's something else: student mental health services. Those that continue to expand out, the money is just not going to be there. The money for those comes from the county. The county's not going to have funding for that. There isn't a national model for it. In 2015, there was the national bill for mental health for students in schools. Didn't pass. There's nothing out there for a funding structure with that. So that's also going to take a big hit. Now, I'm not taking sides on this stuff, right? I'm being really objective. I'm not taking sides. I'm being totally upfront, because this might be the first time you hear some of this, and you're going to hear much more of this over the next few weeks, especially as your schools start to have more meetings, more board meetings. Teachers are going to start being more vocal of saying, I don't know if I have a position next year. I don't know what the school has in mind. But definitely they're going to get word very soon from the state of, listen, we just had, for example, 1 month where we lost virtually everything in our, tax income. And we're going to have more months like that. We don't have the money to do this. We're going to have to delay roads or whatever. And it's not going to be just schools. Like, everyone's going to get the notice. You've got to function the upcoming year on, 8/10 of your budget or 7/10 of your budget. Let's move down here to what do I think is going to get funded? So I think virtual learning platforms will get funded. So we're seeing that right now. Zoom is a big popular one with schools, teachers learning Zoom. I think that's going to get funded. Chromebooks and iPads, that type of technology that gets out to kids, that one-to-one technology, hotspots, Wi-Fi that get out to families so they can access the instruction. That stuff will get funded. And also, this is new, programs to train parents how to use virtual learning, like Zoom and things like that, because there are a number of parents are like, I've never used this. I don't know how to use this. So there'll be some funding out there for teaching parents how to do that. But otherwise, what gets funded? Not a lot. Everybody is going to take this massive, massive cut. It's going to have a lot of anxiety with it. You're going to see people positioning and arguing almost that they're essential. I'm an essential service because I teach this versus somebody else. And it's going to, it's going to get to be like that. We're going to see a reduction in overall offerings in schools, athletics, organized athletics, all of these things which are ancillary are going to be gone. There's just no money to fund these things. School safety in America. So let's take a look at school safety. Safety doc. Let's take a look at school safety and how this might actually look for us. So first of all, school safety is a $3 billion a year industry. Okay, $3 billion a year. 80% of that gets spent on fortifications. So whether it be bollards, whether it be fences, cameras, things like that. So that's where most of the money goes. Thanks, Cameron. So all of that money is going, and we have all of these safety conferences. Like I get little dings on my phone every day. I've got a Google alert, new conference, new conference. Well, now those are all shutting down. Conference isn't being held, it's canceled and whatever. That industry had gotten way out of hand, and it's going to constrict massively school safety. We again, and these dangerous intruder exercises that were challenged by the National Educators Association. Those will all be a thing of the past because, again, people are going to be dollars are so much. We're competing so much for dollars. We're not going to have where we're going to be paying these other companies to come in and to do safety. People are going to have to figure it out and do it themselves, and they'll be capable of doing that. So let me go back to something that happened in 2014 to give us a little context. So in 2014, I wrote an article about this. It was September 18th, 2014. President Obama issued an executive order combating antibiotic resistant bacteria, or MRSA. Remember, we used to hear about MRSA? People would go to a gym, or they would go to the weight room in a school, and it was college players, high school players, whatever, turf fields, and they would come up with infections, and they just wouldn't heal. They wouldn't get better. They were resistant to antibiotics, and they kind of call them like flesh-eating bacteria. That wasn't exactly right on, but it's pretty close. So what happened is when this really started to catch fire, back in 2014, 2015, some of us forget this, but that was a big discussion. What do we do to keep MRSA out of our schools, out of our gyms, out of our locker rooms? What if we get it into our kitchens and other things? This was pretty dire stuff. So I'm reading this directly from the article, just a short paragraph. A few wealthy districts are spending tens of thousands of dollars on special machines that kill MRSA on desk, door handles, and fitness room equipment. A $100,000 germ zapping robot named Gronk, after Gronk, the football player from the Patriots, this robot named Gronk is helping to kill MRSA at a Massachusetts high school. The article about this notes that 350 of these robots have been sold to hospitals, medical facilities, and schools across the country. Okay, let's pause. All right, that was back in 2016 that happened, right? That people were concerned about MRSA. Schools that could afford it, they're like, we're going to buy this germ zapping robot. So basically, this robot, it's like an R2D2 type thing. It goes into a classroom, no kids, nobody in there. You close the door, and it would shoot these ultraviolet and laser beams around and kill bacteria and viruses and whatever. It probably worked, right? But then as soon as you would go to the next room and kids would come back in, that stuff would all be recontaminated again. But the thing is, it's $100,000 to buy one of these germ zapping robots, and districts that could afford it, they were doing it because it's customer perceived value. We can show this to parents and say, listen, we're doing something. We've got the germ zapping robot. I mean, could you take the bottle of bleach and dilute, water and bleach and wipe things down and have a pretty similar effect? Probably, but no, we've got the germ zapping robot, and that's where things are at with school safety. So here's what I'm hearing right now. We talked about school safety. I've written about school safety up until a month ago. School safety, when you talked about that to anybody, they're thinking, oh, it's intruder drills. It's active shooter. It's stuff like that. When you talk about school safety this fall, to any administrator out there, here's what they're going to be thinking. School safety, yeah, it's antibacterial and virus stuff. School safety is going to be germs, hand washing, personal protective equipment. That's where they're going to go. That's going to be the definition of school safety for the near term, at least for the next year or 2 years. And things such as, active shooter, other types of areas, fire drills, things like that, they're just going to be very much in the background, because right now everybody is wondering, how in the world are we going to return to a populated, dense school environment, a brick and mortar environment, and have that safe from coronavirus or variants of the coronavirus? So there's some things that have developed really quickly. So school safety marketing is insane, right? People get marketed stuff because, one, there isn't any law that says it has to be tested and has to be certified, and anybody can market it. You don't have to be a safety expert, whatever that means, some certification to be able to market this stuff. So is just wild. It's just wild. Um, so here's what you're going to see. This is what's going to get funded for school safety. Anything that kills germs or viruses, any of these Gronk robots, any new robot that someone develops, any type of special wand. Hey, welcome, Atham, and I appreciate another thumbs up there in the chat. I appreciate that. So yeah, we're talking about what gets funded for school safety. People are going to fund germ zapping robots, all of these ultraviolet wands, these Ghostbuster type backpacks that mist all around, right? And they're like, it's an ionized mist, so it sticks to stuff, I guess. And maybe it's effective, but again, you have hundreds of kids coming in and out of an environment, but this stuff will sell. It's selling right now. Marketers are really ramping this up. From our good friend Lori Green, over at idighardware.com. Just in the last day, she posted about hands-free 3D printed door openers for locked doors, right? And just for doors in general that you can operate with like a pen or a stylus. Then these things are being made and marketed to schools already, like in the last week. Now, first of all, I don't know how in the world that interfaces with building codes or ADA, but that's kind of out the window right now. We've got the Stafford Act and anything goes. If I'm a district and someone is coming to me and saying, listen, I can 3D print you these things, or like I can sell you a 3D printer, I can sell you this program, this code, right? You can print new door handle covers, which then open with a pen, and every month you can change these things out. Wouldn't you want to tell your families you're doing that? Wouldn't you want to tell your teachers? And by the way, like, you're printing them from this material which is antimicrobial and antiviral. This stuff is actually happening right now. I was wondering how long it would take. I honestly was wondering how long it would take before the vendors retooled and came into this arena. Now, the thing is, like, schools don't have money. We know they're taking this massive hit of probably 20%, if not more, for the following year, but they will spend money on this. They'll spend money on this if they need to prioritize this versus a staff position or two staff positions. They'll put money into this. So anyway, think about these door handle openers, which have been created now. Also, antimicrobial coatings for door handles. This reminds me so much of when they were doing the bullet resistive window films on, windows in schools, like first floor, second, third floor, third floor. This stuff was all over the place. Now people have just taken it and they're saying, hey, we've got these different antimicrobial, films that you can put on, you can spray on it, or you can put on like a tape or something like that. And you can cover up areas, and it'll, obviously it's supposed to kill microbes, but the areas they're marketing these to, and again, this is just like in the last week, right? They're saying, hey, you can put them on door handles, you can put them on chairs, desks, lunch tables, light switches. Well, like anything, right? You can put this stuff on. Does it work? It might work. This is the thing that is so frustrating, right? In safety, it's like the bollards in front of the school building, which are in the picture, the thumbnail for this. The reality is, it probably would work to stop a car from hitting the school, like breaking the school. But we know that schools aren't attacked that way. And we know it's better to spend money on something else like two-way radios and whatever. But let me go over to the chat, because Atham has had a great point. He said, all it takes is sneezing again, and then all the disinfected stuff gets infected again. And it's true. And they're finding out, air systems. So, once your HVAC system is circulating around a school, what are you moving? What is still it aerated? Droplets moving in there. Do you have to put in new filtrations? That'll be another thing too, right? People will come in and say, we're going to do this special UV light thing at every 20 feet in your HVAC system, and we'll have new filters. There are these the MERV filters, MERV. MERV is the rating, how much particulate matter it gets out. And you can sell these things. They can be expensive. I mean, you could sell and say, you got to change these out every, 30 days, and each filter is $150. And those things will sell, right? Atham also wrote, people who get sick need to wear a surgical mask. They don't spread it as easily. Isn't that more expensive alternative? Yeah. So I think once we can get personal protective gear in place, we're going to see schools change their concept of safety. They're going to have kids wearing masks, especially if they're sick. It'd just be mandatory, right? You're going to have to wear this. People coming into the building from outside, maybe it's part of the check-in procedure now. You have to wear this mask. We're going to have personal protective gear. We have school nurses. We're going to have a whole different way that we're dealing with kids, especially if they have a temperature. Maybe that there's a designated room that they go in, and there's a disinfecting process after they leave there and go home. All of this stuff will change. But as Atham, as you indicated, what we're going to see in schools will be significantly different in fall if kids return in fall. And that's going to be, hey, here's our closet where we have the different size mask. Do we have where every student has to wear a mask for a while? We've heard about that. If we get out in public right now, there's some conflicting, whether it be the World Health Organization or whatever. Should we be wearing masks? Who provides the mask? What if a kid brings a mask from home? What does this have to do with our whole identity and safety? We don't want kids to wear hats, but it's okay to wear a mask. And so these will be real policy things. People will be like, our policy, how do we address masks, and how do we address equity? What if somebody comes in, they don't have a mask? How do we change those out? Can we force somebody to wear a mask? Who in the world knows? Atham wrote, ever since schools shut down, we haven't had a single school shooting. And think about how many car accidents. I also read something where the number of vehicular deaths, which is about 35,000 a year, is on pace this year to be the lowest in decades. So we talked about, what's going to get funded in schools. Hand washing stations. Those will be all over the place. Okay. Those will be all over the place. They'll be very overt. There'll be a lot of creative stuff. Like you'll wash your hands, and there'll probably be some timer, whether it be like a light that, not like a red light, but some kind of thing that would engage kids. People will market this, or some kind of song, or once you start the water, you'd have to like keep washing until the 30 seconds was complete. Like this will all be out there. You're going to have, much more use of gloves. You're going to have barriers between, when you come in and you're meeting with the school secretary, there's probably going to be like a plexiglass, wall there and things like that. But so we're going to have a lot of innovation going on. Some of this stuff will be good. Some of it is just pure, crazy, intense marketing, right? That is just the idea. They're going to come in. Schools will have grants. They haven't been released yet, but there'll obviously be grants to battle, virus activity in schools. So it's going to be a hand washing, personal protective gear, anything antimicrobial, all of these things. Like, here's a different way to enter a classroom so you don't have to put your hand on a door. These Gronk, type zapping robots and stuff like that. So you'll have grants to do this. This will be short-lived, because I think overall the economy is going to have this massive constriction and everything is going to get cut down. But you're going to have money put out there for this. So if you're a school board, you get hit, and our good friend Nick Schulander always has shared this with us, customer perceived value. So why does this work? It works because if I go into a school district and I say, you can buy my antimicrobial coatings for your door handles. The thing is, you have to replace them every 30 days, and we're only going to back them if you do that. And you have to purchase from us, how many you have. And people are like, great. Okay. They go and they feel that they're doing something. This is making them safer. They go and they share it out with their community. The newspaper comes in, boom, 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 get a few pictures, a little story. It's all good. The next district over is like, well, we don't have those. We didn't get the antimicrobial coating stuff. So, your vendor, yeah, I'm glad to sell you that. Here you go. So again, as Atham said, somebody comes in, one kid comes in, sneezes, everything is gone. How effective really are these things? We don't have trials, but this is what we're going to see. Hand sanitizer, when that stuff finally gets back in stock, who knows when that'll be, right? When hand sanitizer gets back in stock, man, God, that's going to be all over the schools. Like, that's probably going to be outside of every classroom, inside every classroom. You're going to have regulations, school-based rules where kids are going to have to do this stuff, getting on buses, all of that stuff. It's just wild. So that's kind of where we're at. School funding is going to take a big haircut. Let's go over to the chat room. And dun, dun, dun. Cameron wrote, tuition will go down probably. I think so. Right? So I brought this up a little bit earlier. I'm going to bring it back right now. And just so we have a timeline, once we get to 10 o'clock, I'll stop the chat. This is in my paper today, and it says UW-Madison braces for $100 million cut, and then goes on that's probably just the start. I don't think any university is going to have dorms open in fall. I just don't see that happening, because it's likely we're going to have a revisit of this, and no one also wants to take on that liability of doing that. And I think it's real iffy at this point, even if K-12 schools return in fall. I don't know if we can even guarantee that that's going to be a thing, at least in face-to-face. I would hedge my bets on that. I just don't know. But again, for how schools are funded, we have these three main streams. The number one is through the state, and that's through property taxes. Okay, your tax bill is through sales tax. So that's your number one. Number two is your local taxes. And your number three is through the feds, like through block grants. All three of those areas will be restricted, and there'll be a lot of pressure locally. It's what's called an annual meeting, where they set your tax rate. There'll be a lot of pressure. People will come out to that. As a school administrator, let me tell you, that was one board meeting that I never liked going to. The one where we had to set the mill rate, even if we had good news, right? If we had good news that we were retiring some debt off of the district, because the high school that was referendum of 25 years ago, it's paid off now. We have no debt anymore. Even if we had good news to share, hey, you're going to be paying a little bit less in taxes. People always want to pay less in taxes. There would always be pressure to lower the mill rate. And now when people are coming into these meetings, and they're public meetings and public votes, okay, people don't know this, right? But the public votes on how much your local levy is. The district doesn't get to set that in a closed session. That is a public session. They have to make people aware. A lot of times, not a lot of people would come to those meetings. Maybe 10, 15 people would go to those meetings, especially if you knew who was really pro school. You could get them in there and have them vote that in. But those will be very publicized. People will be showing up, and they'll be saying, again, listen, I've lost my job. My business has closed. We cannot do this. I mean, right now, I cannot pay more. I have to have tax relief. You have to lower this. You have to function with less money. So this is really the discussion coming out. And again, I would say we're going to see the school year, whether that be in person or whether that be face-to-face or some blended or whatever. Right now, it's 180 days of student contact. That's going to get decreased. It's already been decreased by some states, but look for it to go to 140 days, which is a 22% reduction. So if you did have just the same faculty, for example, and you won't, because you'll be cutting a lot of teachers, but if you had the same faculty, they would in turn take a 22% corresponding pay cut, if not more. School contracts start on July 1st. They run through June 30th. So everybody who's on a contract now, that contract will expire June 30th. People who aren't on contracts in schools, your kitchen staff, your bus drivers, they've already been furloughed. A lot of those folks are probably looking for other jobs at this point. Anything that, coaches, athletic directors, stuff like that, that's all done. That's all, none of it. And I don't even see that coming. I don't see that coming back. I mean, we're looking at something so monumental for the ways that schools have to function. Now, again, I'm looking at all of this, and you've heard me before. I think that school spending did kind of get out of hand for quite a while, especially as I saw referendums being passed for these massive complexes, including artificial turf fields and jumbotrons and kind of all of this latest technology and things like that. There is always a price tag to that. We need to be very good stewards of our tax dollars. And now that we'll have less tax dollars, including the fire department, the city maintenance, everyone is going to have less dollars. We're all competing for a much smaller pool right now. There is not going to be any type of federal stimulus bill which is going to bring us back to whole. And some people are believing that's going to happen. That just won't. So this is a I don't know, evolutionary time. So again, school safety. wrote the whole book about school safety, still has a lot of tenets which are really accurate today. But when people think about school safety, when they thought about it, at the start of 2019, they're thinking about assailant drills, school intruders, school shootings, school violence, harassment, bullying. When they think about school safety for the fall 2020-21, everyone's going to be thinking antibacterial, social distancing, hand washing, virus, things like that. That is going to be the new definition of school safety. That's where the funding is going to be. So this whole industry of school safety, it just got out of hand. It got way out of hand. And again, with these massive conferences and people paying $500 for a 1-day conference, and to have these people pitch stuff to them about school safety and devices and all that, that industry is gone. That's gone. Now there are some very solid core people in school safety. It's an essential industry, and I know those people. But there were so many people who just took this and ran with it to make money, because it was just getting funded. We had 500 bills a year, that were being proposed for school safety. I don't know how people are going to react to being told a 20% cut. I was an administrator in a school district that had to close two rural elementary schools because we had declining enrollment, so we had less money coming in. And we had many meetings to get to that point, and outspoken community people, and you felt really like bad for doing this, but you had to, because you didn't have the students, you didn't have the money. I'm going to pause right there. Cameron wrote, do you think social distancing will be implemented into the school system long term, maybe a few years from now? Cameron, that's a great question. And actually, I think it's going to be implemented immediately. I don't think there's going to be any delay on that. When people come back into schools, it's kind of like Walmart. I was at Walmart a couple days ago, and on the floor in the checkout area, there are blue boxes painted on, and it's like stand here, and they're all 6 feet away to keep people distancing. They also have it over by the pharmacy. Schools will be very quick on this. This mandate will come out at a state level, or else schools will just do this immediately when you come back, like lunch. Now there's certain logistics to this, right? Your room is only so big, your classroom, and typically classrooms have between 20 and 30 students. So how are you going to do that? But I mean, people are going to be thinking about this. You're going to see it right away at sporting events in the fall. You're going to have sections of bleachers where it might be, every other row, or there's going to be spacing in between it. It's going to be all marked off. So as you indicated, I mean, I think it's going to happen. I think it'll happen right away. If it's not already in the mix, like right now, social distancing, that term will stick with us forever. And I think maybe if we don't have the coronavirus or some type of, huge flu return in the next 3-4 years, there might be some easing of that. But I think everyone's going to be hyper vigilant on that, because one is everybody's aware of it, right? There's nobody in America who isn't familiar now with social distancing. We've all gone through this together. We see these decrees coming out from the states. And I shared earlier, like with Washington State, where you can report if there is a violation of social distancing, you can take pictures of it and things like that. Parents are going to expect this. Teachers are going to expect this. And maybe it's going to be where you also, Cameron, to build off of what you wrote, maybe we have to come up with some new ways. Maybe it's like, hey, 300 kids go to this school and it's pretty full. We're not going to have money to build another school. That's out of the mix. Maybe we have to go to every other day, and then Friday is a virtual day. So maybe that's how we're going to do things to keep the population down in the school. So we can have social distancing, fewer kids in classrooms. All of this is being talked about right now. I mean, I've talked with several superintendents, different principals, school leaders in the last like 3-4 days, including today. And they're saying, yeah, we're just trying to think, if we were to start up again here at some point, what would we do? Or what do we even do for board meetings? What do we do when we have our teachers come in, right? Right, Cameron? This was a discussion a soup had today. They, in their school, they put in a marker by the copy machine, because you could either send stuff to the copy machine or, take it down. Everybody knows how goddamn copy machine works, right? But anyway, they had markers because people are congregating. They're copying a lot of stuff right now. They're sending it home to families. And they said, no, you've got to be 6 feet back, or you've got to be another 6 feet back, or 6 feet back. So this is really on everybody's mind. And we think about these, again, sporting events, these big, massive stadiums, that seat thousands of people. And I'm looking in my hometown. When this is done later tonight, I'll go to the track, which is a few blocks away. I'm the only one out there because it's late at night. Um, but all of the bleachers for the football games, if they do have football in fall, if they when they have track and other things, they're going to have to mark these things off. I mean, maybe they're going to be painted. Who knows? Maybe whatever. And there's just going to be a very clear rule. Here's where you can sit, and here's where you can't. And I think people are going to enforce that, because one is they're just used to it right now. We've been so used to and conditioned in a short time to social distancing. I think it's also liability, right? Schools are going to want to make sure that they're not having people take pictures of this crowd on the bleachers and whatever. They're going to be aggressive in making sure that people sit in their areas and embrace social distancing. This, as weird as the spring has been, I think the fall is going to be even stranger, because if once you start to have people and students back and parents back in a building, schools are not at all designed through structurally or conceptually to have people social distance. You have people congregate into areas. You have your bleachers in the gymnasium, your classrooms at 25 desks, your theaters and stuff like that. They're all kind of population dense. Think of a school bus, 40, 50 kids on a school bus. Somebody sneezes anthem, right? It's like, achoo. Oh my goodness. That now we're all in trouble. How are you going to do school busing? I'm here in Wisconsin. You get to the northern part of the state, that's completely rural. So kids are being bused, 40, 50 minutes or more one way. So what do you do on that bus if somebody sneezes? But this is where the marketers come in, and they'll start selling stuff, or special misting sprays, or some sanitizing laser beam thing that you put on a bus, Mr. Laser, whatever they call it. Who knows? And you're going to have these things, but are they going to be effective? And what do you're absolutely right, Cameron. The whole playbook for school safety gets rewritten, and they can say that they did, but nobody practiced pandemics. Nobody did that. Nobody had tabletops. Here's how it went down. Like, I did a show about this. Maybe, what was it, about a month ago, when this started to get a little iffy. I'm like, something bad might be coming out of this for schools. And I said, schools aren't prepared for this. Schools will look to the county. And that's the way it always was. When I was an administrator, if you had to shut down because of some type of virus, or if it was like food poisoning or mold or whatever it was the county health department that was telling you. And that happened a few times. Like, kids would get norovirus or some kind of flu, the typical flu, and you might shut down for a week or 2 weeks, just because a lot of kids were out, and then it would pass. But so schools just basically said, we're just going to let the county tell us. And that's not the way that it happened this time. Counties were kind of dragging their feet, waiting for the state to make a decision. States were waiting for the Fed to come out with a decree, which, happened about two weeks ago. So it was real choppy the way that this happened. But yeah, this fall, though, I think we're going to see really different things. I don't anticipate, especially if it's a highly populated school, you're going to have kids there every day. It might be every other day because of social distancing. How about preschools, right? Community preschools? My goodness. I mean, we have in my state 2,200 sites, including community preschools. How do you do distancing in a preschool when the kids want to be close to each other? And how do you make sure that they're wearing, masks, or if they're sick, how do you make sure that they're not coming into the building with a fever? Do you assign somebody when everybody comes in that does the temperature check, kind of like if they have Fidelity at an airport? Would you actually do that? Think about it. This might be the way that you come into school. I mean, in fall, a lot of superintendents were like, we're doing more, high fives with students. We're doing building of culture and stuff. And now when students come in, you might be taking their temperature. Oh, you're 100.4. You need to stay right here. And they go off into an area. That stuff's all happening. So just a recap. Thank you for everybody for joining me for this live stream. I appreciate it. If you can hit the thumbs up and subscribe, share this, I appreciate that. I'll have this show out probably in the next few hours, because I already wrote the blog post. But a few things. Schools are in store for drastic austerity measures. We're looking at probably a 20% funding cut, and it's probably going to last for quite a while. The number one expense in schools is teachers, it's staff, salary and benefits. So we're going to have staff reduction, any, cooks, buses, maintenance, everything is going to get hit. As far as school safety, all of that, hyper realistic intruder drills and window films and bollards, there'll be no money for that. That'll be gone. What you're going to see, though, is money coming out for hand sanitizing, personal protective gear, education programs for teaching kids to stay clean, to sanitize things. You're going to see a lot of new technology. I already talked about somebody came up with this way to 3D print some antimicrobial plastic that goes over a door handle in a school, and then you just need a pen to use it to get in and out. You just use this pen to open and close the door, or a stylus. You're going to see all kinds of stuff like that, all kinds of mixtures being sold, people walking around in backpacks spraying stuff. That's where it's going to be at. Even though there's not money, right? There will be money for that, because that's what parents and teachers want to see. And that then becomes social proof. One district does it, others will be pressured into doing it. And if it comes down to, again, we're going to do this germ fighting robot versus a math teacher, they're going to go with the germ fighting robot. That's not even a debate at this point, not coming in to this fall. So if I'm going to end this with just a little reflection here. Someone who is a teacher, who's in education, this is an incredibly unsettling time for them. A lot of them have not been told this information by their administrators. Administrators are just getting this information from the states, from their school boards, saying, listen, we're not going to have the money. We have contracts. We've got to get these contracts out in the next month for staff for fall. People are going to start realizing this very fast. You're going to start hearing this if you're a parent from your school, saying, we're going to have fewer offerings. We're going to have fewer staff. This hasn't sunk in yet. People are just not realizing the fact that you don't have this complete stalemate, this economic collapse, this economic idling. Even if things recover, even if everything in 2 months kind of bounces back, we've taken this massive, massive hit. And unemployment, 20-30%, business is closed. There's going to be definitely 1, 2, maybe 3 years of really hard times. For schools. Can they get through it? I absolutely believe that they can. I think school districts also that have been very responsible, good stewards, and not building these crazy facilities and doing a lot of these ancillary positions, I think they're going to be well positioned, because they've already learned to be very lean and functional with whatever funding that they have. And in communities that are growing, if you're really a fast growing community and you've just passed referendums for new schools, now you've got the issue of, not getting as much funding, plus like you're getting more kids at the same time. So you've got that going on. And you also probably have these tax protected districts. So these new companies that you gave all this money to come in, you built the water and sewer going out to their place. And you said, oh, we're not going to charge you school taxes for 10 or 15 years because you've come in. And now they've laid it off everybody. So now you've got this, these companies, they're not contributing. Your communities are still having to pay out the loans that they took to build the road, the water, the sewer, the electrical lines, the high-speed internet, whatever, out to these places. You can see this kind of becomes this perfect storm. So let's go over here. Bull rush. Howdy, everybody. Bull rush. Now, when you think of like Photoshop and things like that, and the creative arts as they pertain to electronic media, Bull Rush is the person. He's really phenomenal with all of that. Bull Rush. Just send the kids to school in a bubble. That'll work. There's going to be some point in this where we have to have some determination, right, of what people deem safe for interaction and what they don't. Are we going to require? I mean, this is like what we're hearing right now. If we go out in public, are we going to have masks? I've actually, my parents have masks now for when they go out in public. And is that something that's just going to be part of school? I don't know. I mean, like, we're thinking about going back to Disney And I'm like, I'm trying to imagine like going through Disney and just having a mask on all the time. Can you imagine what the pictures look like? Like you go up to the memory maker person, they're the photographers, right? And they'll take your picture and then it syncs over to an account. So you don't really even have to mess with your camera. But can you imagine like you're all sitting there taking your picture and like half your face is covered in a mask? I mean, it just has this weird concept. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So hey, Bullrush, Cameron, Atham, anything in the chat before we shut it down? Anything at all? Bullrush wrote, "Why are people so scared of getting sick?" Yeah, I mean, part of that is it's a great question in that if we become sick, I mean, if we don't become sick, right? It's the whole myth of if you have not the myth, but the premise of if you have a super clean house, um, and you're not exposed to dirt and bacteria and things like that when you're younger. When you get older, you're more likely to have allergies and things like that. I mean, I don't know all of the science behind it, but we build up immunity. We have for forever to be exposed to things. So part of me is wondering, and I don't know this, I haven't seen this, but if we, for example, if I would get the virus, am I better off if the virus returns then in fall because I've had it, like I've got some immunity then to it? Or is it better that I've been quarantined or, basically self-isolating kind of with everybody else under the state decree, stay at home, and I don't get it, but like it's always out there. So how much am I protecting myself? I mean, I think about this as really this debate, right? And especially for kids who have pretty robust immune systems, they're going to be exposed to this stuff if they are next to their parent when they go to Walmart, if they go to the grocery store and they put their hands up on the cart, or you set them in there and that cart's been used by 50 people in a day. So there is something that in our own immune systems, I don't know. It's a great question, because are we just creating this huge liability where we look back and it's like, oh my goodness, if people would have had more exposure to this the first time around, they would have been better off to handle it the second time around. I'm not, but who knows? Like who knows in that? So Bullrush wrote, will I get a rebate on my property taxes? Bullrush, he's also a comedian, folks. He's also a comedian. Yeah, the thing is absolutely not, right? And here the article I had from UW-Madison, which was in today's paper, saying that they're going to take $100 million hit, also says, by the way, university will not reimburse students for tuition and fees. And fees are just ridiculous. All the different student council type stuff that gets to the university. So to me, like, I'm reading that and I'm thinking, you have an endowment, you already have a fund balance, and let's just talk priorities here. Camp Randall, UW-Madison, 80,000 seats. The Cole Center, another 17,000 seat complex. They are both starting construction. 77 million at Camp Randall for expansion and renovation. $44 million over at the Cole Center. I haven't seen those iced, but maybe students should get a refund, some prorated refund on tuition, because it's the middle of the semester and this happened. I don't like the feel of that at all. But Bullrush, you're right, and we talked about earlier in the show about property taxes. Property taxes are set locally, and that's about where half the money comes from schools at what's called an annual meeting. It usually happens in July, but it can happen like in August, September. But you want to check this out if you're a taxpayer. You want to know what's happening at this year's annual meeting. Like I will be at my annual meeting, and I want to know for sure exactly what is being spent and what the district has taken for austerity measures, because everything is gone down. All of our property values will take a hit from this. The taxes coming in that pay for school staff, pay for busing, everything's down. Everything's gone. The only thing that's makes any sense is you're not paying these high fuel prices, but you're not running the buses anyway. So it's just incredible stuff that's coming up. But you're going to these school meetings, and if you have a chance to attend some of your school board meetings right now, or some of them they do them online, you're going to see some really intense, fierce discussions about what stays and what goes, what gets cut and what's gone. And again, I went through uh, when I was an administrator, we closed 2 outlying buildings. We had to cut a number of programs because we had declining enrollment, and in the town had a foundry, and the foundry laid off a lot of its workers. This was back in 2008 when the GM and the car makers crashed, and the foundry made a lot of parts for the cars. So the foundry shut down, and then everything kind of spiraled. It did rebound, but in that time, every meeting we had as administrators, it's like, what do we cut? What do we cut? What do we cut? What goes? What goes? What goes? And I mean, it was living lean. We got to a point, and there's an article about this. It's going digital for dollars. I came up with the idea, all right, to sell the upper right-hand corner of our district webpage. I knew how many hits it got. I asked the tech guy, I'm like, how many hits do we get as a district on this webpage? I don't know, whatever, you know, 2,000 a day or so. I came up and I said, let's sell this upper right-hand corner for advertising. How much can we get? So we sold ads. I came up with it, presented it to the school board, like innovative thinking, like we had to do it. We had to get some money. And the who bought it? The realtors, because realtors know that people are going to look at your website if they're coming into your community. The hospital, other businesses in the community bought this because they wanted some exposure. Even though it was a down time, we still had some exposures. So I think we had like $7,000 to $10,000 a year of new revenue recurring off of this, right? That we didn't have before, that then I could put into bus repair. Like we had our own bus fleet. Like we had to get creative on this stuff. I mean, it was just, but that is out there. And people have got to do the same. Now that's not going to patch a 20% hole, but it was pretty cool. Again, and I think it was called Going Digital for Dollars. I don't know. I was on TV too with it, but that was a while ago. So Bull Rush wrote and then we'll wrap it up here. Well, we've made it this far in evolution without Clorox wipes. Yeah. And unfortunately, like I can't even find any more Clorox wipes. So I think that's become the new trading currency around here. Cameron wrote, the universities in my area closed down for the next 2 semesters so far. So I'm guessing this semester in spring. Yeah. And what I've been hearing from my faculty friends out in the field, what I've been hearing is we're also going to have some universities that just aren't going to open in fall. They're going to notify, because look at our system here in Wisconsin. We have UW-Madison, then we have a lot of smaller 4-year universities, which still have 7,000 or 8,000 students. That made sense. That made sense 100 years ago, 120 years ago when they were founded, because it took a lot to travel from Superior to Madison and stuff like that. You didn't have the infrastructure and things like that. You didn't have virtual learning. It doesn't make sense today to have all of these universities. They've been going down in enrollment. I think you're going to see in my state 4 or 5 of the bigger state universities, not UW-Madison, but a tier down. They're going to shut. They won't even open in fall. You're not going to have the dollars. You're not going to have the students to do it. Bull Rush, nice doc. That's back on selling that web space stuff. Yeah, that was actually really fun too. The tech guy and I made a commercial, an ad, and we had a whitewater rafting thing, a little spoof, and it had our business manager in it. In this whitewater raft, we put his face over it, and it went up in the corner. And it was really funny. Like, even though like it was really trying times for the district and stuff like that, and we just showed what this would look like. But the doc had his sense of humor even during the stressful times. All right. Cameron wrote, I definitely don't want to be doing calculus online. Yeah. I mean, there's some things, right. People are like, how do we do this? How do we do like a nursing lab online and some of this? I don't know. And that's where we're going to have to open some of the stuff up with social distancing. And Cameron, that's where it might be where, there are only 5 students allowed in on certain days. So if you have a lab, instead of having one lab where 20 students are there, now you have to have 4 labs. All right. And anything else is going to be done virtual. Everything's going to be recorded, stuff like that. Calculus 2. Yeah. When I was in high school, little fact here, safety doc, I decided to drop trigonometry my last semester of school and take plastics. And I made a plastic a duck, a mallard, and a plastic bank and a sled. All right. To this day, I still have the mallard, and my kids use the sled on the sledding hill 30 years later. So, yeah. Going back to my counselor, Mr. Talupa, who is right now, safety doc, sled. And I learned that stuff anyway. I picked it up. Atham. I might not even have money to pay tuition, so if they're not open this fall, I don't care. Yeah, that's the part. Atham, right? People don't people don't grasp this. There isn't going to be the money to do this, and if we're prioritizing, university comes out and says we're going to have to raise tuition. Well, good, I guess, but no one is going to go to school. That is just not the model that's going to work. You have to have these measures of austerity just like everybody else. There is no way in hell UW Madison is going to come out and raise tuition and not basically implode the entire university system. Absolutely won't happen. Um, so yeah, my physics lab is a mess online. So yeah, my God, I can't. I really, Cameron, I feel bad for you and for anybody that has to do some of these things that have to be lab based, where they've been transitioned rapidly into online. Because yeah, I don't know how you do that. I think it'll make more sense like in fall. And like I said, I think there'll be some social distancing things where the labs will be set up and they'll be spaced more. Things will become coherent, but it's really a tough semester to move over. Very disorganized. Yeah. And what I've been hearing from school administrators is saying, yeah, like teachers are freaking out. That's the word they're using, freaking out. They have they don't know, what if a parent says the best time I can learn with my kids is 6 p.m. So can you do a Zoom with us at 6? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, the teaching day was always, 7:45 to 3:15. So does that change now? If you're a teacher this fall, do you have so many hours a week? And basically you kind of get those filled up into different spots. So maybe you're teaching, from 8 to 11 and, again from 2 to 4 and maybe some nights 6 to 8. And is that really a bad thing if you do that? I mean, I work with clients all over the world. I have to work with different time zones. I'm flexible. I make things work. So maybe this model needs to be distorted and shaken up and turned around. I mean, maybe we need to offer instruction, some options at night. I don't think that's a bad thing. Now teachers will look and say, I already give all of this time, and I get that, but maybe then you're going to have a couple mornings where you're not going to be teaching or whatever. But this whole thing of thinking like teaching starting this fall is going to stay 8 to 3 anywhere, that's out the door. That's not happening anywhere. There is no way in hell that model stays. There's no way that model stays. And schools will also change that model to make sure that they keep enrollment, because every kid in the door is $12,000 a year for that school. If that kid is homeschooled, that is $12,000. Or if they go to the neighboring school that offers those flexible times, that's $12,000 traveling through open enrollment with that kid to the neighboring school. So again, some of these things are going to be taking this whole model of education and I think improving it and bringing it up to where we're at as a society with virtual ed and the fact that, the working parents and different shifts and things like that. I see that as being a positive. So let me just wrap up here. My daughter's grades have gone up a letter grade since she's at homeschooling. Yeah, Bullrush, guess what? I had to learn, I had to relearn how to do fractions with my youngest daughter, because I'm like, okay, I know we got to get the common denominator here, like da 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 da. I'm trying to figure it out a little bit. I did. Like I got back and then I was teaching her, and then we brought out the calculator and did it so we could match, that both were accurate. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Hey, it's our good friend Nick Schulanner in the house. Nick, all right, and I appreciate Nick being in the house here. I'm going to work with Nick to get his show here in the next couple days, and we're going to focus on Nick's experience of being at university in Washington that got shut down, right? Attending there as a student, and basically how that process went of being shut down. And Nick has some insight. There's one thing I'm like, Nick, if you had to do something different, what would you do? And he had one piece of advice right off the top, which none of us kind of think about, but it makes a lot of sense. So we're going to talk about that, get that inside perspective, because again, if you're going back to school in fall at a university, if you're going back there, you got to really be ready. I mean, it's got to be like a bug out thing like MASH. I mean, they could shut that down at any time. And especially, if they do open up some campus housing, which I don't think they do, but I just think you got to be ready. You got to be prepared if you're heading back to a university this fall that it is going to be shut down at some point, because the moment we start getting a second wave of coronavirus coming through and it starts to get on the radar a little bit, no one's going to hesitate. They're going to shut all of that stuff down and push it back online. So Nick's got some really cool, really pertinent advice. Anyway, Nick Schulander, he's studying engineering, studying marketing, a really sharp guy. He's an entrepreneur. It's good. Had him on the show before. That'll be a really good one. Bull Rush said, my dad taught me to do fractions with a tape measure in about 45 minutes. Best math class I ever did. Yeah, I actually have one of those tape measures kind of set up like that. My godfather had it, and it's really cool. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because if you do it, then you can actually look and it's tangible. It's not this abstract thing that you're trying to put together. So a few things before we go. If you guys can do me a favor, go over and hit thumbs up. Like, I see 3, but I know let's help me out, for God's sakes. Give me a thumbs up. Here's my book. Not telling you have to go and purchase it, but School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety. It's on Amazon. It's hard copy if you get it this way. Otherwise, it's like, $15 or whatever. It's in e-format. But the thing with the book is it's about chaos theory. First chapter, how thinking about a bagel can get you through the worst day of your life, transitioning into chaos. There are people who've contacted me and somebody just put a thumbs up and then they took it down. That's cruel. But people have contacted me and they've said, listen, that the book has really helped me, Dave. Like, I've really got through this. Like, it's helped me. Somebody did that today. I've been able to talk about chaos. Like, chaos is out here. This is chaos. This is kind of a Chernobyl event. What you've been talking about. Self-similarity is what we're used to, but we are in chaos. But systems develop, we kind of get used to it. I'm like, yeah, use the language. I did a great job in the book. The book is really spot on with what's happening right now, more than anything I've probably ever read. I'm just saying, like, it's really good. So yeah, subscribe to this channel. I've gained a lot of subscribers here in the last few weeks. I've been producing more content. So this is actually the 7th show I've done in March. So yeah, thanks for that. Thank you for being in the chat. I really appreciate that. Keeps me going with doing the shows. I do a full blog post. It'll be up there. So things I've talked about today, it comes out, in about a 500-word blog post the next day. So you can go back and, link that, or if you have conversations with people and, but yeah, whoa, like, the things coming down for education are unbelievable. You're going to see this all over the news. And especially if you're a parent, I think just be very aware of what your local district is doing and what they're prioritizing. And I guess also as a taxpayer, I want to make sure that my district isn't buying these $100,000 germ zapping robots and all of this that's being marketed out there. It's one thing to buy those at a time when everything's kind of going well, budgets are increasing, people are employed and all of that. That's still, I think, an irresponsible, uninformed purchase. It's, I think, a completely negligent, dangerous purchase when you're having massive cuts and those dollars need to go somewhere else. So Cameron wrote, these shows are great information. Hey, thank you, Cameron. I really appreciate that. I studied high stakes decision-making at UW-Madison. So I studied high stakes decision-making in the military and healthcare and medical. I really am passionate about the work that I do because I am recently retired. I can do this. I can share information without having to go back to a school board or somebody and saying, you need to kind of govern, your statements and measure what you say. What I'm telling you is authentic and well-researched, giving you information that I think helps you both in perspective and really gets you ahead of the curve of what's happening out there. So this is a Safety Doc signing off from down here in the North Star Weather Studio. It is now up to 57 degrees down here. So yeah, we're going to have the short sleeve sport coat pretty soon. If the temperatures keep going up. But everybody stay safe. Check in face validity with your member checks, your friends around the country. Ask them, what are you seeing? What is happening outside in your community? That's where you want to get your information, not just from the media. Get information from your member checks. Ask them what's going on. Check in with your family and friends. They appreciate the phone calls. They appreciate the handwritten letters. If you got time, like I've been doing with my family, my parents, my wife's mom, we've been doing little 5-minute family videos every 3-4 days, bring the camcorder out and, whether we're biking, badminton, playing a game of Monopoly, whatever it is, we record it, say hi to people, and it means a lot, right? We want to stay connected to our friends and family. So, hey, everybody, thank you. Oh, what branch were you in, Doc? These are great. What branch of what? What Bull Rush? What branch was I in? You asked. Um, all right, Bull Rush. Bull Rush. Da da da. What branch was I in? So I wasn't. Oh no, I wasn't. I wasn't in the military. I was not in. I was not in the military. I was a firefighter years ago. I wasn't in the military. So, um, yeah. Oh, thinks. Yeah, thinks I'm ex-military. No, no. I'm not. Um, I'm not ex-military. So, but I did have a pretty wicked tree fort when I was growing up. It was really up high, camouflaged really well. But nope, no military experience for the doc. So, all right. Hey, Bull Rush, Atham, Cameron, Nick Schulaner. Um, Anyone else here in the chat? I'm not going to scroll through, but thanks so much again for getting into these live streams, for sharing the content. The channel's growing. I think this is really relevant. It's important information to get out. Nothing's behind a paywall. I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is authentic as it gets down here for the doc. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, and I'll aim to get another live stream out here in a few days. Best.